Are we live? Yes, we are live. Hello and welcome to GER Hub Research Project Writing Classes, or what you could call Research Project Writing Live Chat. Welcome from around the world. Thank you for joining in on this live chat. Sorry we are a bit late because of technical issues. Thank you for staying patient. Thank you for waiting on us. Thank you very much for joining in. So welcome to GER Hub Research Project Writing live chat on YouTube. We are very, very grateful to have you. Thank you very much. Now, as the thumbnail speaks, it reads how to write the limitation of your study. Now, if you joined our live chat yesterday, I talked about one particular thing. I told you that in that chat, we shall be talking about the difference between the limitation of your study and the delimitation of your study subsequently. And today is that day. So yesterday in our live chat on research project writing, we talked about the delimitation of your study, what the delimitation of your study means. But in today's video, in today's live chat, we shall be discussing the limitation of your study. What does it mean when we say writing the limitation of your study? Now, take note, it is different from delimitation. One is delimitation and the other one is limitation. So what is the difference? Let's start this video on how to write the limitation of your study with telling you the difference between the delimitation of your study and the limitation of your study. So let's start with that. Now, like we said in our live chat yesterday, delimitation is another name for the scope of your study. Delimitation is another name for the scope of your study. Now, by delimitation, it means you want to tell us what your work will discuss. You want to tell us at the beginning of your research what we are to expect from your work, what your work will discuss, what your work will border on, and at the same time, what your work is not expected to discuss. So when I pick the delimitation in your work, when I look at your research project and go to the place where you have the delimitation of your work, I am expecting to see you tell me as your reader, the reader of your work, that your work will focus on this area and that area. However, it will not focus on this area and another area, okay? So that is where you tell me where your work will focus on. Where is that in your work? It is the delimitation of your study. Now, take note, delimitation also means scope of your study. Now, how is delimitation different from limitation? On the other hand, limitation, which is the focus of this live chat today, this video today, is that component of your chapter 1 that talks about the kind of problems you encountered in the course of writing your research project. So it is limitation of your study as a component of your chapter 1 that tells us what you encountered as challenges in the course of carrying out your research. So they are two different things. Limitation is not the same as delimitation. They are two different things. Okay? Now, because the focus of today's video is how to write the limitation of your study, I hope you got the difference between the two of them. So we shall be discussing in detail about limitation of your study. So let us focus on limitation of your study. Now, let's start with question number 1. I know I have said this, but let me repeat myself. Let's start with question number 1. I'm going to be talking about each of the things I feel you should know about the limitation of your study. So let's take them question by question, satisfying satisfying whatsoever it is as a question you may have in mind, okay, to ask us. But you could turn in your comments and you can ask those questions in the comment section below, okay? So let's start with answering question number 1. What chapter of your research project in what chapter of your research project should you tell us the limitation of your work or limitations of your research? And my answer to question number 1 is, it is in the chapter 1 of your work. It is in the chapter 1 of your work, that is the introductory chapter, the chapter that carries introduction, that you tell us the limitation of your work or the limitations of your work. Now, what does that mean? It tells you that limitation is a subheading in chapter 1. Simple and short. So that answers question number 1. In what chapter of your research work should you have the limitation of your study? And I'm saying it is in your chapter 1. Okay? It is a subheading in your chapter 1. Let's go to question number 2. So in question number 2, let's ask ourselves this particular question. What does limitation of the study or your study mean? What does limitation of your study mean? Limitation of your study, as an answer to that question, refers to that part of your chapter 1, like we've rightly said, that talks about all the challenges you had encountered in the course of writing your research project. Limitation study talks about all the challenges or the constraints you encountered in the course of writing your research project. Okay? Now, let me say this at this point in time, that when writing the limitation of your study, still on number 2, now that you know what it means, you must take note of the fact that if you are carrying out the actual research, in the course of documenting that actual research that has been carried out, you would have to put the limitation of your study in this manner. Okay? In this case, or in this particular circumstance, when you have finished writing or carrying out the research project and you are documenting your findings, your limitation will be talking about the challenges you encountered. Okay? When you have finished writing the research project, the limitation of your study will be talking about the problems you encountered in the course of writing the project, the research project, be it a thesis or an undergraduate project. Okay? But if you are writing a research proposal, then you must take note of this, that you can also incorporate a limitation into that study, that is the limitation of your study, into that proposal. But in this case, bear it in mind that you won't be talking about it as problems or challenges or constraints you encounter in the course of writing the research, because you have not carried out the research project yet. You have not carried it out yet. Proposal. So in this case, what you would be telling us are problems you envisage, problems you think you may encounter along the line in the course of writing or carrying out that research. So the limitation for the limitation that is written for a research project that has been carried out is different in tone, the way it sounds, from that which should be contained in a proposal. For that in a proposal, it would mean telling us problems you expect to encounter or you think you may encounter in the course of carrying out the actual research. But in an actual research project, you will be telling us what the problems were that you encountered in the course of writing the research project. Okay? So that is the difference between the limitation for a proposal and the limitation for the actual research. Now, that brings me to question number 3. Now, in question number 3, what kind of research limitations would you usually encounter? What kind of research limitations would you usually encounter? Now, among several, there are basically some that you can hold on to. Time is usually a problem you can experience. That is insufficient time to carry out a better research than what you may end up carrying out is usually a problem. So it may be that you had to carry out a research project or carry out a research project that should have taken, that required, let's say, a year, let's say 6 months, let's say 3 months. But the time that was available to you was less than the expected number of time, and the expected amount of time, rather. So you were supposed to carry out a research project properly within a space of, but time was not available to you. Time was sufficient. So you did not have 6 months to carry out that research, whereas the research was supposed to take 6 months to carry out a proper research. But you had 4 months to do a 6-month research. So it is in your limitation of the study that you tell us that this research, the research findings are the way they are only because time was a problem. Insufficient time was available to you instead of sufficient time. Meaning that if you had a good amount of time available to you, a sufficient amount of time, you may is time factor. Now, another factor that students may encounter as a limitation to their study is finance or resources in general. So let's put finance under resources. You may be carrying out a research project that requires good amount of money, good amount of finance to carry out the research project. Let's say in carrying out your data analysis, you required somebody who is a data analyst, an expert, to do your to perform the data analysis for you, and you were to pay the person X amount of money, okay? But because you could not raise X amount of money to meet an expert to do that with a certain software, to carry out the data analysis with a certain software, you had to go with a data analyst who could do it with a software that is not as good as the software you were supposed to do it. You will be needing money. If your research requires the distribution of questionnaire, that will in turn require you to pay some persons to distribute your questionnaire for you, then you will also be requiring money, of course. Now, in the course of writing your research project, you would need to give certain aspects of your research project to experts or consult experts on certain aspects of your research. All these amount to money. So what we are saying in essence is money or finance can actually make you deliver a research that is below what you expected you would deliver. Okay? So if your research project was supposed to be this, at this level, in terms of productivity, in terms of rating or quality, lack of finance or insufficient finance can bring it a little bit below what you expected you could deliver. Okay? So what I'm saying in essence is, number one, time is usually a limitation to any study. Number two, finance is usually a limitation to any study. Then let's talk about resource. Some people can consider finance under resource, but let us try to separate resource from finance. Resource is another limitation that could affect your study. It could make your study very good. It could make your study below good. Okay? So now, when it comes to resources, you could look at the personnel that may be required or involved in your research project writing process. So you may have a good number of personnel available to you that will help you carry out the research effectively or efficiently. It is also possible that you may not have the required number of persons that will help you carry out the research you are embarking on efficiently. And in that case, lacking the required amount or the required number of persons to efficiently help you carry out your research may affect the results of your research. So take note, personnel under resources could be a problem, could be a limitation to your study. Another thing that could be a limitation to your study, still under resources, could be the materials. insufficient amount of materials or no material at all available to you could affect your study, the result of your study. So now, there are so many other things. Think of them as they may be peculiar to you wherever you are in the world, carrying out a research project, as they may be peculiar to your terrain, as they may be peculiar to your study. Take note, anything, what we call the limitation of your study is anything, not necessarily these ones I've mentioned. I have mentioned time, I have mentioned finance, I have mentioned resources, okay, in terms of personnel or materials. Now, aside time, aside personnel, aside finance, aside all these things I have talked about that may be limitations to your study, there are so many other things peculiar to your work you may encounter in the course of writing your work, or you think you may encounter in the course of writing your work. These things put together are what make the limitation of your study. And that answers question number 3. What are some of the problems you may encounter as limitations? Now, question number 4, like I usually would emphasize, should the stating of my limitation in my study follow a pattern or a structure in the write-up? Yes, I am saying it a very big yes. When writing the limitation of your study, you should follow a structure. Now, I'm going to tell you what structure you should follow. Take note, when writing the limitation of study, I would always suggest that as a student writing a research, a technical write-up, put your points in paragraphs. When you put your points logically in paragraph, showing coherence, it makes your work beautiful, it makes your work readable and understandable by your would-be reader. So please, to answer that question, should the limitation of your study follow a structure in the write-up? I am saying yes. Now, to guide you on what structure, I am saying put your points in paragraphs. So if time was a problem, put it in the first paragraph. If resource was another problem, put it in the second paragraph. If what other one? Finance was a problem, you can put it in a third paragraph. So in paragraph number 1, in the limitation of your study, you could tell us that in the course of writing this study, time, the amount of time available to me was insufficient. As a result, the results expected were not gotten as they should. Okay? Now, if finance was a problem, you could also state in that manner. In the course of writing the research project, finance was also a problem. Now, you could put embellishments that make that paragraph convey the message properly, but put each of the limitations you encounter in paragraphs. So an opening paragraph could state the 3 of them, but in the subsequent paragraphs, you could start highlighting each of them and explaining in detail how time really was a problem to you, okay? How finance was really a problem to you, and how, lastly, resources was a problem to you. Take note, these are not the only 3. You could have more than 3 that are peculiar to your work or peculiar to your terrain. Now, that being said, let us go through what we've said so far. Limitation of your study is different from delimitation. Point number 1. Number 2, limitation means telling us those things you encountered as problems in the course of writing your work that prevented your work from being what you expected it to be, or those things you think you would encounter in the course of writing a research, carrying out the actual research, if it's a proposal, that may have been a problem or you think may be a problem in the course of writing the actual research. That's number 2. Number 3, the research limitation is found in your chapter 1, the introductory chapter, so that is where it should be. Okay? Number 4, the limitation of your study should follow a sequence. Okay? In that sequence comprises paragraphs. So put your statements in paragraphs. That should be a good structure to writing your limitation. And number 5, please take note that limitation of your study should talk about all the problems, and notable among such problems that you may encounter in the course of writing your research project is time, insufficient time. 2, insufficient finance. 3, insufficient resources. These are 3 notable ones, but there could be more as peculiar to your terrain and as peculiar to the research you are writing. That being said, thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you for joining in the live chat. Thank you to those of you who will be watching this video after now, just in case you could not join the live chat. Thank you very much for staying tuned on this channel to watch this live video and to watch it later on if you'll be watching it later on. Please smash a like on this video. Please smash a like on this video. Tell a friend about this channel, a friend that is writing research project or a friend that will be writing research projects subsequently. Tell them about our live chat that holds every day on this channel at 8 or 8:30 p.m. as we would announce on our channel, okay, or on Facebook or on WhatsApp. Please tell a friend about our videos. Tell a friend about what we stand to, what he or she stands to benefit from this channel. Please, most importantly, smash a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and remain blessed. Thank you very much.